So devotion has been defined as profound dedication and earnest attachment to a cause or to a person. Synonyms of devotion include adoration and affection. And again, we've already used the word, but dedication. Devotion is essential for us to talk about because it is absolutely a requirement of a genuine disciple of Jesus Christ. We must be totally devoted followers of Him. Now, the Bible is full of examples, and we could spend hours talking about the devotion of the people in the Bible. But let's just take a couple. For example, Abraham. I just so admire Abraham, the devotion he showed to God. First, in leaving Haran, the place of his birth, where his entire family was, where he had his business set up, where he had connections, and there was security. He left Haran, traveled to what was now modern day Israel, at God's direction, purely out of devotion for God, not knowing what lay ahead of him, not knowing what he would find there. And then later, to take Isaac to the mountain to sacrifice him at God's request, a 3-day journey to the mountain of God. Think about the devotion it took from the heart of Abraham to walk his son up that mountain, prepared to sacrifice him to God. That is just incredible. Also, I think about Joseph, staying in the Old Testament. You think about Joseph. Joseph was sold by his brothers into slavery. And then Joseph was incarcerated for a crime that actually wasn't even committed. And yet his heart never got bitter. He never turned sour. He never got resentful. He didn't get eaten up with anger because his heart was so devoted to God. He later told his brothers, many years later, he told his brothers, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. And he could understand that out of pure devotion. And then you think about David. David was a man after God's own heart. Doesn't mean he was perfect, but it meant that in his best moments, his heart was so devoted to the Lord. And when you read the Psalms, you hear him loudly and strongly proclaiming the glory of God. That is just pure devotion. Now, if you advance to the New Testament, the early church was very devoted to God. In fact, in the book of Acts, it says they were devoted to the apostles' teaching, to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And because they were so devoted to God, and they were so focused on His kingdom, and they were so willing to set aside themselves and sacrificially serve the Lord, He added daily those who were being saved. And so you had 3,000 members of the church on the day of Pentecost. Very soon after that, you had thousands and thousands of more added. And then they went out as missionaries, and they turned the Roman Empire upside down. Now, in addition to the church in general, you had specific people. Look at the Apostle Paul. What a devoted follower. Peter, James, Andrew, John. What devoted followers. And then you also have Mary of Bethany. Her brother is Lazarus. Her sister is Martha. But Mary is that devoted follower of Jesus. In John chapter 12, we read this incredible story. There's a dinner in Bethany being held in Jesus' honor. And so the men are there in the room and they're eating. The women are in the background serving. And Mary wants to honor Christ also. She is a devoted follower. She is a true disciple. And she just can't stand it. She wants to show her Christ how devoted she is. So she takes this jar, this alabaster jar, which is incredibly expensive in and of itself. And it's full of a pure perfume, nard. And scholars tell us that it was probably worth about 300 days' wages, which is, scholars tell us, that is a year. You know, you think about a year's worth of perfume. What she would have made in a year is in that one perfume bottle. And she pours it out on Jesus' feet, and she anoints him. Mary took the lead that night in honoring Christ. Devotion of this nature only comes through genuine experiences with God. Head knowledge alone will never create this kind of devotion. The psalmist tells us, taste and see that the Lord is good. We must experience His hand. We must see Him at work. We must experience His moving through our lives and through our church. It's seeing God's presence that creates this kind of devotion. When we read the Bible, we don't need to just add head knowledge. We need to experience our Savior. We need to read it looking for Him and His personality and how He operates. It's not just trivia for us to win the next Bible drill. It's the revelation of God. When we come to worship, it's not about us and our religious entertainment. When we come to worship, it is to experience the presence of God as He gathers with His collected body. As we serve God, we need to become His hands and His feet and His mouth. God needs to flow through us as we impact others. That's devotion. Now, I want you to gather with your life group. I want you to discuss the subject of devotion. Let's talk about what it is and what it's not, how we can become more devoted to Christ, and what that will do in our lives.